Sondra L. Matthews, Sondra L. Matthews, Matthews, editor and publisher of Our Times newspaper.
I guess the first question that I'll ask you is, do you have much memory of Evansville before desegregation, when it was still very much a segregated community?
Oh, absolutely. This is my hometown, so I grew up in the segregated Evansville. So my memories are very long, but my memories are good because there was no tension because we all lived separately. And so I went to kindergarten in Lincoln Gardens, which is a public housing development, one of the first in the state to be built. And from kindergarten, actually it was daycare. It's daycare. And then then Lincoln School was a kindergarten to 12th grade until they built Chestnut Walnut. And so then I transferred to Chestnut Walnut until the 6th grade, and then that's when Lincoln became a 6 through 12 school. And so I spent all of my formative years in Evansville.
Talk to me about what it was like to live in a segregated community.
Well, for me, it was glorious in a way because living in Lincoln Gardens, which is right off of Lincoln Avenue, which was the hub of everything, all the life and styles of black people. I lived 2 blocks from my church, which was Little Hope Baptist Church at the time. And I lived 2 blocks from Lincoln School and 3 blocks from Carver Community Center. And therefore, that was just the boundaries. I think the boundaries went as far maybe as Evans Avenue to downtown we could go. And then going north to Jimtown, which was kind of like a black enclave where my grandmother and my grandparents lived. But it was exciting. I learned to swim at Miller's Pool, which was a half a block from our apartment. And it was just a life of knowing families, knowing people. You didn't have people who were anonymous. Everybody knew families because basically at Lincoln School, we had generations that attended the same school. So even if our teachers didn't know our first names, they knew our last name. They knew, to call us by our last name if we were to be corrected and that sort of thing. So it was a community, a village, if you will, a village of families and churches and organizations and clubs and entertainment. It was just wonderful for me.
What do you remember about the beginnings of the desegregation movement here, and sort of how did it come about?
Right. I really wasn't here during desegregation of Evansville. If you want to talk about it starting with the lawsuit in 1967-68, I was not here. I was here when Brown versus Board of Education came down, and slowly some things began to change a little bit. I remember some Caucasians, 1 or 2 were coming to Lincoln School, and 2 or 3 blacks were going to Boise, and it was just a kind of trickle process. And I think that downtown we were able to sit at the counter, but not the big counter. Say, for example, at Neisler's, we weren't able to sit at the long counter, but there was a little special stand where you could get hot dogs and things, and they would allow us to do that. But it was very, very gradual desegregation in Evansville, to the point where there were lawsuits for open housing and lawsuits to follow through on Brown versus Board of Education. So desegregation did not come without some fighting. some tension.
And that was the question I was going to ask you. I mean, was it, especially, when you started to see the first few black students go to Bosse, the first few white students come to your school, was it a tense time? Was it, what?
Those times were not tense because, as I remember, the couple of whites that came to Lincoln School had already kind of been with black people, and so we kind of knew them and they knew us, and I think it was a decision of their parents to take part in the desegregation. I think they had been a part of the religious community prior to the actual law changing about blacks being really bused to other schools. But doing the busing part, I think, was where most of the tension took place when they started busing blacks to schools like Hartwood Elementary School, places like there where white parents resisted blacks coming into quote unquote their school. And so I think that's where most of the tension was when the busing started.
Okay, and you were gone by
I was gone by then. I left Indiana University in 1963 and went to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which was a much same thing, marching for open housing, marching for better jobs, all that kind of stuff. So even though I was not in Evansville, I was still experiencing the same action, if you will, to get things changed.
And I guess that's my next question, is how much did what happened in Evansville mirror what was going on in the rest of the country at that time?
Yes, the marches, the quote unquote riots, burning property, those are the same things that were happening in cities all over America, and it was because of the resistance of the majority. If the majority had been law-abiding people, instead of going against the law, a lot of the rioting probably would not have happened because they would have been allowed into the schools, allowed into the housing. A lot of the housing resistance came from well-to-do white people who had plenty of money, had power, and they resisted. So when you're talking about the resistance, you're talking about the social, economic, and political resistance of the majority in this community to not allow black people to have access to what the law said that they had access to, if you believe that we were full human beings and first-class citizens.
What would you say has been the lasting impact of desegregation in this community, and are we where we need to be in Evansville, or are we still a little bit behind the times when it comes to race relations?
Basically, Evansville is still a divided community. For the most part, in my opinion, if black and white people did not go to school together, did not go to work at the same places, we probably would still be not that close than we were in the 1950s. There are not a lot of social interaction. Politically, we've gone backwards. I thought it was disingenuous for the Republicans to say that the low turnout in the last election, they have to do something about it. Well, the turnout was low because they did do something about it. They changed from precinct polling to the joint center, going to centers to vote. And so whereas, for example, people had a precinct polling place in the high-rise, the towers, where the elderly could come down on the elevator and go into the polling booth. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. Say, for example, in the 4th Ward, you have to get to either Memorial Baptist Church or Zion Baptist Church to vote. Whereas we had 122 polling precincts, I think it was cut in half. So people are still confused about where you go to vote and how you go to vote. Even though they can vote anywhere in the community, they don't know that. So I think they're being disingenuous because they do not still want to have equal opportunity socially, economically, and politically in this town.
Well, you mentioned politically and sort of the division. The fact that the county has never had an African American county commissioner. Other than on city council in the fourth ward, you're pretty much going to have one black person on the city council, and the rest of city council probably not. Can you talk a little bit about the way how that speaks to the division that still exists in this community?
Well, basically, the political culture is tokenism. I think people feel very comfortable in trying to say that, oh, we're not racist, we're for equal opportunity, and calculate to have one black in each of the bodies. It will be interesting to see. I think Mr. Burton, Alex Burton, has announced that he is going to run for the at-large seat for city council, and it'd be very interesting to see how much resistance will go into place, not only among basically among Democrats, even though black people, black voters have been loyal to the Democrat Party forever. They still would find a lot of resistance to adding another black person to the city council. It's going to be interesting to see what the turnout would be.
Is there anything else that you can think of that you want to say about the sort of relationship between black and white in this town and how desegregation has or has not affected it?
Right. There are still the corporations kind of make sure that there is still a bridge between the two communities. They will assign some of their people to the boards of like Carver Community Center or the Evansville African American Museum and that kind of thing. But for example, when we have the Martin Luther King Memorial Service at New Hope Baptist Church on Sunday, this coming Sunday, there would be very few elected and appointed white people at that event. There would be very few people outside of those who will be asked to speak to the audience. There was a time, though, when there was a larger, closer to the death of Martin Luther King. Once the holiday was assigned, there was a bigger turnout of white and black people together at that service. But over the last 5-6 years, white people have pulled back.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that's the only question I have. Is there anything else that you want to say?
Well, there's plenty of work to do for not only about desegregation or integration. We just need to make up our minds that black people are first-class citizens, and the Constitution says that we have rights and privileges of white people. And if we would just decide to maybe teach the real history of the United States in our schools, especially our high schools, that we'd probably be a lot further along than we are.
I'll ask you one more question. One of the things that a couple people have talked about stemming from the race riot in 1903 is the fact that, after that happened, a lot of black people just left Evansville. Didn't want to be here, and some people have actually blamed that for a lack of a weaker black middle class in Evansville today still. Do you think that's the case? Do we still not have the same black middle class that a bigger city would have, or has that rebounded?
I think the black middle class was built after World War II, and I don't think the 1903 race riot had that much to do. I know people wanted to be safe because it seems as though that the law enforcement in those times were less discriminating about which black person did what. And it was not unusual in the history of Evansville for blacks who had come from Kentucky and Tennessee to escape slavery were turned back, sent back to those states, sent back to those plantations, and of course once they sent back, they were made an example of what happens when you run away. And even in Evansville, it's not unheard of for them to actually put black people who had escaped from slavery in Kentucky and Tennessee in jail. And so that's not that far. 1903 is not that far from 1865. And so when you're trying to escape to freedom and you escape to a border state like Indiana, which says that they don't want you here, then when a riot breaks out, you're going for freedom. So I can see why they would leave.